Yo, welcome to episode 23 of the Harsh Reality Podcast. I'm your host, DA, and I'm ecstatic to be here with you guys for this first ever solo episode we got. Unfortunately, El Miguel is on daddy duty, with his oldest child's birthday weekend. So happy birthday to little El. Many more. Seeing Shorty go from a little baby to, however old he is now is kind of amazing thing. So definitely don't knock him for taking a day off for that. And Rye's still on maternity leave, although she should be coming back soon. Talk to her tonight actually and see she should be back for the next episode. Hopefully, she's dealing with that newborn. But congrats on Rye for a beautiful, healthy son she got there. But on this podcast, we plan to hit on various topics revolving around the latest news, business, family, life, some hip hop news, maybe some social commentary, and any recent headlines that affect our community. Disclaimer, by no means am I an expert. I'm just an everyday person with a small platform. I'm trying to add my 2 cents to the various subjects I plan on discussing today. Also, if you aren't already, and that's a damn shame if you aren't, because we need to get those follows up. Let's make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The Harsh Reality Podcast, okay? Firstly, we got shout out Melanated Conscious Society, MCS, headquartered in Jacksonville, Florida, is a mentorship organization teaching various life skills as well as knowledge of self to our youth. Make sure y'all go follow them on Facebook and Instagram for the latest news, meetings, and valuable information. And also, I would be amiss if I didn't shout out my KWAZ radio family. KWAZ providing the latest and greatest and conscientious-oriented content. Make sure y'all follow them on all forms of social media, as well as subscribe to the Bitter Medicine podcast hosted by Koku, the Pro-Black Perspective hosted by my brother Oni Tase, and the Learning Curve hosted by Sis, the very knowledgeable queen, the revolutionary matron. And lastly, the podcast is now on Patreon. Please donate. And of course, all proceeds go to upgrading the show and providing the best content we can for our loyal listeners. And also for those looking to drop us an email for suggestion for guests or just leaving a comment, make sure y'all drop us an email at theharshrealitypod@gmail.com. And now, without further ado, let's get into these topics I got today. Once again, I'm doing a solo pod today. I was thinking about canceling because I want to do a live stream actually, but unfortunately with YouTube you need 24 hours activation before you can live stream, which I didn't know, so I gotta apologize for that. But I do want to get something out to you guys, so I figured we go solo and see how it goes. Hopefully I don't rant too much, and I'm gonna try to keep it cognitive. Of course, it's gonna be a little bit shorter episode than probably what you guys are used to, but hopefully within that shorter time, I'm able to pack in more information. And once again, next week, we're looking to do the live stream. Also, we got a new episode of the Harsh Reality Presents coming up. I'm finalizing the guests for that one. And I'm also doing a little side project I'm working on right now, a little bit more conspiratorial type of information. If that even exists these days. Seems the conspiracy theorists have been nailing it. I don't even know you could call them conspiracy theories anymore. But we're going to be doing a little side project I'm going to be doing. And I will definitely keep you guys informed about that involving, previous guests on our Harsh Reality Presents series. So I'm giving you an Easter egg for what's coming up, All right. So with that being said, that's all the news I got for now. Let's get into these topics I got today. The first topic I got is about the Texas. As we all know, Texas just produced a law where they're banning abortions after 6 weeks, which was upheld by the Supreme Court. I didn't really want to talk about the subject of the morality of abortions itself. I think we've beat that horse dead. It's in terms of that, either you believe that life begins at conception or you don't. That's pretty much the big divide that you have there. And there's really no talking through that. What I was telling somebody earlier is you can't really compromise that issue, because one side is going to look at it as you're a baby killer, and the other side is looking at it as a fascism, authoritarian, you're trying to control my body type of deal. So I don't really see how you can compromise that issue in my eyes. So I think a better view would be to say, is it actually a woman's right issue that we're dealing with right now? As you know, the Texas governor is an all-encompassing authoritarian figure, right? He has a Senate that he has to answer to in order to pass any laws. And on that Senate, you have women. By saying it's a women's rights issue, you're basically invalidating the opinion of these elected officials that you put there. That's the purpose of democracy, is that you're supposed to have people that represent the people, right? You voted these people in office, and now they're supposed to hold your best interest at heart. So I think myself that is a bit of a cop-out to just say that you're dealing with a woman's rights issue, and it's very emotional. One thing about, and I hate to divide the sides, because I think that's part of the problem we're dealing with, is that people have been so entrenched in this tribalism that they automatically go into a adversarial type of stance when they're debating these issues. Oh, you're a leftist liberal, or you're a right conservative, or you're a libertarian. I think you just need to take every situation, every subject, every topic, look at it for face value and decide what would be best for you, what would be best for your people, what would be best for society, right? So when you call it a woman's right issue, you're signaling it's a dog whistle. Okay, this is a liberal fight versus a conservative type of fight. When in reality, it should be a what makes sense type of fight, and keep it a buck. It's not a women's rights issue. It's basically a decision. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not going to get into my personal thoughts on it, because I'm trying to keep this very nuanced with this conversation. But the part that really, really struck with me is the way they're trying to push it as though, women's rights are being impeded upon. When in reality, it's plenty of procedures that you just can't get, for various reasons, men and women. You know what I'm saying? So what you have here is an issue actually where you're dealing with where does life begins. And that's why I said this is an issue that really can't be compromised. But, as this podcast is more of a pro-Black podcast, we're gonna examine that to the Black community, right? So as you know, Black abortions, the vast majority of Planned Parenthood services and Planned Parenthood offices are located, as we know, in urban areas, right? Low income areas, many of which are Black areas. If you know anything about the history of Planned Parenthood and the history of Margaret Sanger, one of the founders of Planned Parenthood, it was a big eugenicist type of deal, right? And recently, in places like New York and Mississippi, places that have a heavy Black population, you've gotten to the point where abortions have equaled births in some years. Basically, a stagnated population growth, which some people see as a good thing. I don't, particularly if you're dealing with political power. One thing they keep saying is no way we could be 13% of the population. You hear a lot of Black people like, I know it. We know we would be 13% of the population. That's impossible. I mean, it's very possible when you keep killing your babies. It's very possible when you're engaged in abortion, right? And that's part of what they're doing is stagnating that population growth, right? Which in turn stagnates your political power, which stagnates a lot of things. You know what I'm saying? Your ability to have professionals that can build up your community, that can bring wealth back. So that's what you have to also take in consideration when you're talking about the abortion, not just the act itself, but the consequences behind the act. So that's what I have on that. That's my thoughts on that. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead and solo dolo this joint. So anybody who has any suggestions or any comments afterwards after I load it up, you can definitely hit it up in the YouTube comments. Let me know what you think. Also, you can shoot me the email. And one thing too, like when it's a big thing for you to leave a review. Leave your opinion, even if it's a bad one, on these various streaming sites. Hopefully it's a good one. But leave your opinion, man. Let us know what you think. Because one thing I want to do is improve this platform. I want this platform to grow, and I want you to get something from it. So just let me know what you guys think. Second topic I got is about Mr. Joe Rogan. No Joe, right? As we all know, we've seen in the news that he got the Rona, the C19, the stupid 19, I think I'm gonna call it for algorithm purposes. And then we seen a persecution on him for stating what basically he did to clear up, and I think he want to say he got rid of the symptoms within 3 days using the medicines that he suggested and also the treatments that he suggested. He cleared up in 3 days, tested negative, right? And you had one side of the political spectrum going crazy about that, which is ridiculous. You would think people would be happy that somebody not only cured themselves, but given advice that may help somebody cure somebody else, right? Cure themselves if they encountered, the stupid 19. But instead, you kind of had some blowback, which I think was very hypocritical, because basically what they were saying is that he's not qualified to give his health opinion. And you're talking about a side that basically has paid celebrities to give you their health opinion. They've paid Ariana Grande. They got Ariana Grande out here telling you what medical procedures you need to participate in, right? Whatever, these YouTubers, they paying YouTubers and TikTokers to give you medical advice. Yet Joe Rogan, right? A guy who was in incredible shape for his age, right? Like a martial art black belt, right? Shredded at 50, 55, 57. How old he is? He's in his closest mid 50s, I believe now. Shredded, right? Incredible shape. Exercises, active every day, jogs 5 miles, still trains to this day in mixed martial arts and rolls with some of the most elite martial artists we have here, right? Even shows them how to kick. Like, you're dealing with somebody who is not ignorant of the subject of health and how to take care of your body. May not be a medical professional, right? May not be a MD, may not be a PhD, may not be a epidemiologist, may not be a virologist, but this is a dude who has knowledge. This is a dude who has sat down with some of those same epidemiologists and virologists, right? So how could you discount that knowledge, particularly if it helps somebody live? What I'm seeing a lot is a lot of people who are just think the only solution is being muzzled and getting stabbed, right? Stabbed up with their concoction. That's not health, man. That's not a long-term option, right? It's a fact that 80% of the people that have been hospitalized with stupid 19 for complications behind it have been obese. This is a big fact. It's not me pulling those statistics out my butt, right? So if your whole goal is to ensure the health and safety of the population, why would you quiet dissenting voices or people who've given advices based off their own experience? You cannot discount somebody's own experience when they're doing it, and I say there's somebody who had to deal with stupid 19 as well, not even too long ago. And I know what helped me. So when people get it and they talk to me about it, I tell them what helped me and what worked for me. And one of the big things I think that helped me is that I'm in decent shape, right? I stay active. I'm in the gym 4 days out the week. Cardio, weightlifting, all that. I try to eat decently. For the most part, I have my cheat days. Those hot wings be looking good some days, huh? But for the most part, I try to eat as clean as I can, eat very organic, and things like that. And I think that was a big factor in helping me get better and kick it in the amount of time I kicked it, right? So when you discredit somebody's life experience, that just shows your ingenuity, and that's going to make it even harder to push the solutions that you want to push. If you want to push the jab, it's going to make it harder for you, because now people are looking at your hypocrisy and saying, why would you do this? why are you going this route? Why are you trying to silence people who are trying to help people? So it's just not a good look overall. You know what I'm saying? So particularly when you're paying TikTokers, you're paying people with followings on Twitter and Instagram to push, push your clinical trial, pushing your experimental jab, right? Yet a guy who's generally trying to help people and telling you his experience is outlawed, is anti-science. And that's another thing that is crazy to me, is that they push this anti-science thing, right? In reality, science is made to be debunked. It's all about the best practices at the time, and we need to realize that science is never set. That's why when they say trust science, that in itself is oxymoron. You can't trust science because science is made to be debunked. It's not a one size fits all rule. Neither is healthcare itself. Something that may cure me may kill you, or may, greatly damage your body. It's not a one size fits all. You're dealing with 7 billion people on this planet. That's 7 billion sets of genetics. That's 7 billion sets of muscle density. That's 7 billion sets of body fat percentage. 7 different sets of ancestral leanings. What maybe what your ancestors ate may be better for you rather than what my aunts, you know what I mean? So you can't say one size fits all when it comes to this science thing, when it comes to medical health. So that's my thoughts on that. I think I wrapped that up pretty good. And like I said, the hypocrisy is just blinding on that one. And it doesn't help anybody's cause. Even if the solution you're pushing, you think best, it works, which doesn't look like it with what we're dealing with right now. But even if it was, let's take it for face value. Even if it was, the fact that you're putting out basically information that is counterproductive, counterintuitive, that doesn't pass the sniff test, right? It's hypocritical. That makes people question everything else after that. It's like if you get caught in a lie and you say something else, you'd be spitting the secret to life after you got caught in that lie. But people are always going to question your motives after that. They don't question your narratives. That's why you need to keep it a buck. That's why that 100 symbol was invented, that people keep posting everything, you got to keep it 100 in all cases. Even if that 100 consists of you saying my bad, you know what I'm saying? That's better than you continue to lie, right? Because now no one will believe it. It's the boy who cried wolf type of scenario. And that's kind of what we're seeing with the media, which is why the American media is probably one of the least trusted sources right now, just because of this Joe Rogan situation kind of highlights that. So that's what I have on that. Let's go ahead. Keep it rolling, baby. Keep it rolling. Into the next topic. And I'm going to hit on these indoctrination centers. That's what I call the schools, man. If you hear me say that, if you follow me on social media, you hear me say an indoctrination center, you know what I'm talking about, schools, right? And are they kind of on their last leg, right? What I'm seeing is reports. I seen a report out of Chicago that states that you had 100,000 students not show up for school. You also had the bus drivers striking. So now they're scrambling to get kids to school using like Uber and Lyft. And anybody that has a kid, as a parent, I know that's the most terrifying thing that I've probably ever heard is putting my kid into a Lyft or an Uber to get to school. That's a no. That's a hell no. But that's how disorganized and just disjointed this thing is, right? That you have an acting mayor scrambling to get kids to school on the first day using Uber and Lyft, because you decided in your infinite wisdom that it would be best for these bus drivers to participate in a clinical trial that they didn't sign up for. And you could say, this organization approved it now or whatever. However, it's still a trial until at least 2023, if not later. The vast majority of jabs we have that are approved took a decade or more to develop. that doesn't change over time. There's no new technology we have that can fast track a jab. It's certain steps that have to be adhered to, particularly in terms of long-term data. So you cannot knock somebody for not wanting to participate in clinical trial. Hey, even if they want to get it later, let me see what goes on right now. You know what I'm saying? So once you make that decision and all these bus drivers and stuff quit, you have to own up to that decision, right? Which I'm not even sure is a bad thing. I'm, for one, am in favor of like situations like homeschooling, tutoring. They have these different pods, they call them learning pods, where 10 parents get together and just pay a tutor to come all day and teach their kids. Now you're getting the hands-on teaching, right? You're getting a hands-on type deal, somebody who can deal with a smaller classroom size anyway. Right now, you have situations, particularly in major cities, where you have 30 to 40 kids in a classroom. How can one teacher who's with them for maybe an hour before they switch classes, if they're in middle school or upwards, how could you really focus on them kids? You can't. That's the whole failure of the no child left behind thing, right? When you're dealing with 30, 40 other students that you got to deal with in class, you can't slow down your lessons to focus on this one kid who may not be grasping it, who may learn different, right? So you're left with two options. You could either dumb down that class so that everybody gets through, which a lot of teachers do, or you can just design yourself that this kid has failed and now he's in that prison, that school to prison pipeline that we've hit on earlier. So that's one thing you need to think about. So the collapse of the education centers, the indoctrination centers, I'm not entirely certain that's a loss. Now, where you run into some hiccups about that, right? Is that parents still got to work. We're in this system right now where it's no longer feasible for you to have one parent work while the other parent takes care of the household and have all your needs and bills, mortgages, car notes, things like that paid for. We're also using more credit than any time before in history. Prior to now, I used to buy things in cash. Hell, they used to buy houses in cash. That's unheard of now, unless you're a millionaire, billionaire, is to buy cash. And a lot of times they still finance just because it's not feasible to spend all your cash unless you plan on staying in the house forever to pay off that house. And then it goes in the red. Now you're losing money, right? You lost more money because you done paid all outright for it. So a lot of people still finance, a lot of these rich people still finance their houses. They just may pay like a year at a time instead of monthly mortgages. So in those cases, those parents are kind of screwed, right? They see school as more so a babysitting service for them. I don't necessarily think they believe that their child is learning everything they need to learn or is getting the proper education that they need to be productive citizens. However, they need that 8-9 hours so they can go punch a clock, so they can be a cubicle slave, right? A wage slave, whatever you want to call it. If you're offended by that word, it doesn't matter. That's what it is. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? You're trading an infinite resource, which is your time, more particularly time with your family, in order to survive, in order to eat, and it has always been like that. I'm not suggesting that it was better. You have a lot of people out here who think like, oh, back in the day, I seen a post the other day on Twitter, right? Basically the system anyway, like, it's crazy that we pay for food and pay for water and pay for all these other things. It's like, you don't understand the labor that goes into you just being able to go to Publix and grab a steak or grab a bag of chicken. Like, a lot of things have to happen. A lot of people have to put in a lot of hours for you to have that convenience, which is crazy. And that's another thing. Like, our kids aren't getting that basic education of labor, of the cost of labor. So they go into these indoctrination centers. This is probably had a degree, probably had a college degree. But if you ask her where food comes from, the grocery store. Where does water come from? The faucet. So it's like, dude, like, you don't even understand labor. It's a first world country type of deal, man, where you don't even understand the work that comes in for you to have these conveniences. It was once upon a time where your family spent the majority of the day getting water and stuff like that. I took a trip to Mexico and saw the ruins, the Aztec ruins, right? And the tour guide gave us a lot of information about, how the people lived back then and things like that. And what he was telling us, because, these ruins were next to a saltwater source, they couldn't drink that salt water, right? You can't drink salt water. And the nearest freshwater source was probably about 30 miles away. So basically, the mother or whoever, the kids of that household, in order to have fresh water for that day, had to walk those 30 miles there and back, 20 to 30 miles, hauling a couple gallons of water, mind you, just for that day. This is something that had to be done every day unless they was going to post up at the water hole, right? So you got to think about that. Now you can just literally walk into your kitchen, flick the faucet up, and you have fresh water. And a lot of work had to go in for that. A lot of work that still has to be maintained, And so when you look at these education centers, they're not even teaching people these basic rules of life, these basic survival skills. So what are you really learning? You can't eat the Pythagorean theorem. You know what I'm saying? You can't eat Menslow's law. You can't eat Darwinism. You can't eat the theory of relativity. You know what I mean? You can't. It doesn't happen. You can't eat the laws of gravity like that. You still need basic survival skills out here, yo. And when these education centers ain't even teaching that, these indoctrination centers ain't even teaching that, what are you going for? I was one of the last people who went to my school, which was a technical high school at the time, where they actually still had, wood shops, auto shops, drafting, basic home ec, things like that. I even had a class called economics. Was it home? It wasn't home ecs. It was some kind of economics class, but it basically showed you how to do a budget, right? People don't even know how to do a budget these days, yo. You know what I'm saying? Like it's crazy. So if you're not learning them basic life skills, what are you learning in school? How to test. That is what they learned. They turned that technical high school I went to into a college prep. College prep is code for we're going to teach you how to pass standardized tests. So you're going to school to learn how to take more tests. So you can go to a college and get 6 figures in debt to take more tests. The system is broken, and I'm, for one, am praising the fact the system is broken, and people are realizing that you have some scams going on with these institutions, that you have a lot of indoctrination. You have teachers more concerned with coming out on TikTok in front of their students so they can get views rather than teaching these students life skills. So I am fully clap, round of applause. Down goes Frazier. Let's get these indoctrination centers, but we do need to figure out an alternative. And we got to part of that is getting back to a community, getting back to a community of people that care about each other, so that I can watch the kids these days. Or if you got 5 parents, 2 kids between us, 10 kids, what we're gonna do? We're gonna rotate these kids every day. And you're going to teach them this day. What's the name? Used to be a former math teacher. She good at that. She going to teach them on Tuesdays the math they need to know. So-and-so over here is good at history. So-and-so over here has a nice big van, so he takes them on trips. Because you learn a lot more traveling and seeing stuff than you do sitting at a desk learning and dumping, right? You learn infinitely more. That's why kids are so excited for field trips on top of it. They don't have to sit there twiddling their thumbs and doing schoolwork, sitting there in a boring, sterile environment. They actually get to do hands-on stuff, get to touch stuff, get to see things. We need to get back to that. That's the bit. I say traveling is the best education you can get. Getting out of that circle, getting out of that box. I'm from, the west side of Chicago, man. So my day consists of walking to school, seeing buildings, concrete, graffiti, some gangbangers on the corner, maybe a crackhead here and there, maybe a pigeon, that's the wildlife. We got pigeons, a couple rats, raccoons and possums. That was it, right? So when we took these trips to go to different places, you go to Springfield and see Lincoln's childhood home and log cabins, or you go to a farm out here and get to feed the chickens and all this other stuff, right? You get to do these hands-on things. That's the best education you can get. Even talking to people outside of your realm. It wasn't until I left and did my little, tour that I got to talk to people from all parts of the country and seeing how people live and just how much in a box we were. So these indoctrination centers, and that's why I call them indoctrination centers. That's all they are. You want to call them babysitting services, that's fitting too, because that's what they are. So I actually think it might be a good thing. So with that, about halfway through the episode right now, that was the third topic right there. So we're going to take a quick station identification break. I've been sitting here ranting for almost 15, 20 minutes about myself. So got to throw a little water on the throat. You know what I mean? And we'll get back to you on the other end.
Greetings, everyone. This is Koku from the Bitter Medicine Podcast, inviting you to tune in to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the Pro-Black Perspective, where Black problems are addressed with Black solutions.
Greetings, fam. Tune in to The Learning Curve with me, the Revolutionary Matron, on KWAZ Radio.
All right, we are back. Next thing I want to get into, everybody knows I'm a numbers guy, so this is pretty hard hitting for me. We got the economics topic, and why a lot of people are not hip to the game of money, of numbers, right? It's the international language. Money and numbers are a language within themselves. They don't change. You can go anywhere. You can go to Saudi Arabia. You can go to Greece. You can go to Nigeria. Numbers is numbers, right? You can write a two. A two is a two, no matter where you go. It's the one language we all speak, which is why they say business is like the international language, right? Because business is mostly dealing with finances and numbers. So that's one thing we need to be cognizant of. You hear a lot of people saying, I don't play about my money. Well, you obviously do play about your money because you don't know about economics, right? And I had a very telling thing, so I'm scrolling around and I see Boyce Watkins. I don't know if you know about Boyce Watkins. He's supposed to be like this pro-Black finance type of guy. Talks about, stock investments and things like that. Well, lately he's kind of been more into actually like celebrity stuff and, and talking about, things not money related. But traditionally, if you go back, study his history, I think he was more of a money, stocks, build for self, pro-Black business type of dude, right? And his tweet basically was speaking on a stupid 19, whereas though he's like, the least jabbed population is like, well, one of the least jabbed populations is actually PhDs. And they got this chart showing, different education levels and the amount of jabbed within those demographics. And so one thing you need to understand is that when you talk about PhDs, right, people who have a doctorate, they are probably one of the smallest segments of the population. You're talking less than 2% of the population. I think it's like 1.67% of the population has a PhD. So when you're dealing with that small of a segment of the population, right, there are things called outliers. Outliers like somebody who is like something that's outside the bounds of the norm, right? It happens all the time, right? It's like people that hit the lottery. They're like the classic example of an outlier, right? The vast majority of people who get rich do so off, maybe hard work, starting a business, entrepreneurship, things like that. However, you have the few people who go to the grocery store, buy a lottery ticket, and it happens to hit every once in a while. So they will be outliers. You cannot make a stat to say the majority of billionaires are lottery winners. That would be an outright lie, right? Smallest percentage. So now dealing with this PhD thing, when you're dealing with less than 2% of the population, any present of outliers will move that needle a lot more, right? One or two outliers in a small population will move the needle a lot more, right? And the example I gave, I called it out. I'm like, this is disingenuous. And this is not me advocating for the jab or not, because I think people who know me know how I feel about it. But at the same time, this I can't rock with what you're saying right now because you're being disingenuous. I try to consider myself a righteous dude for the most part. I try my best. So when I see disingenuous, right, not only does it hurts the movement, because if anybody does see through what you're doing, then it looks bad on all of us who may feel the same way that you feel, right? We may feel the same way that you feel, but you're being disingenuous, makes us all look bad. And now this can be used as an example against maybe what we feel is right. So the example I gave is like, it would be the equivalent when you have an outlier in a very small segment. So let's say I take a goldfish. I'll take that goldfish and I throw it in the ocean, right? Which is a huge segment, right? 70% of the world is just ocean. If I throw a goldfish into the ocean, nobody would notice. Wouldn't make a blip. Ocean levels would stay the same, But if I take that same goldfish, right, and I got a glass of water that's full to the brim, and I throw that goldfish in that water, guess what? That water is going to overflow over the brim of that fucking cup. Oh, sorry for using, I'm trying to limit my cursing, but when I'm solo dolo, it's a little hard. But so yeah. So that's a bigger effect. When I take that goldfish and put it in that smaller segment, that cup of water, it had a way bigger effect than when I threw it into the ocean. And that's what you need to realize when you're dealing with that. The thing about statistics is they can be used for various purposes, all of them not noble. If you don't know what you're looking at, if you know how to deal with statistics, you can make anything, go the way you want it to go. I can say most cancer patients report being regular water drinkers, right? And that would be true, right? 99% of people in treatment for cancer right now report drinking 2 glasses of water. You should avoid water. And it would be a true statement, right? But you have two things that don't have nothing to do with each other, right? But the fact that I know how to play with these statistics, right? And I know, the different habits of people, right? I can do that. So be very cognizant when you're dealing with that. And that's why you need to know how numbers work. That's how you need to know how economics work and staying on that same wavelength, right? That's why you need to pay attention to what's going on, not necessarily be a news watcher, because the people watching news are losing their mind with anxiety, but kind of understand what's going on in the world overall. And you're seeing a big, like I said, I talked to Bitter Meds the other day when we had the Shoot the Breeze episode, and you guys make sure y'all check out the Shoot the Breeze every Saturday, man. It's a lot of knowledge being shared on that. But one of the things I brought up was the real estate market. You have states that are losing population. Like I use Illinois as an example since I'm, original Illinois resident, right? Illinois just lost a congressional seat because so much of the population is leaving. I don't think Illinois ever had within the past 50, 60 years had a positive population growth. There's always people leaving Illinois. However, the real estate market doesn't reflect what's going on with the population. The real estate market is actually going up. So when you see anomalies like that, you have to look and dig, like, why is the real estate market still strong, still going up when the population is obviously going down? That's because you have investment firms. Investment firms are getting out of the market. These investment firms, one of the strongest investments you can make is property and land. These are things you call real estate. That's what's called real estate. I'm not going too big of a lesson because that could be all day. That could be a podcast episode by itself. If I went into fiat and the central banking system and fractional reserve banking and things like that, we're not gonna go that deep yet. we're gonna get, you gotta eat baby food before you eat steak. So we're gonna keep it real simple. And I'm not saying my listeners are simple. I got a lot of smart people that listen to me or whatever, but I want to make things digestible for everybody, right? So when you're dealing with real estate, those are things that are tangible, things that you can touch, right? Real things. Fiat currency is not, right? There's nothing backing this money. The only thing backing this money is the fact that You know, we have a military that'll crush you if you don't take our dollar. But outside of that, there's no backing behind this dollars. And also you have things like inflation. I was talking to somebody about inflation earlier. I guess they don't understand how it works. A lot of people don't. But that's cool. We gonna break it down. And that's another anomaly within this whole thing is the stock market, right? And that's another thing. Once again, shoot the breeze. I was talking yesterday to the brother Koku and Revolutionary Matron. A lot of people came on. It was a great episode, man. If you don't already subscribe to the Bitter Medicine podcast, make sure y'all do that. Matter of fact, subscribe to all the shows on the KWAZ network, because I think you get a little bit of knowledge from each one of us, and we all kind of specialize in different areas. So you're going to get a good gamut of things. And they're also looking for, I think, somebody to talk about spiritual things. So not to get too much off topic, but this stock market, right? For one thing, back in the day, stock markets be a mystery. When they didn't want you into it, it was a boys club, right? You had to go through a broker. They had to approve you. You had to have a line of credit, things of that nature. You had to check through the papers. You didn't have any real-time stuff. Now they've made the market accessible to everybody. You can literally download the app and buy all the stocks you want to a certain extent. And it's a reason behind it. It's a reason why they want the layman. Believe me, if they didn't want the average person in the stock market or playing it, you wouldn't be able to do it. So they kind of use a little bit of reverse psychology, particularly with like Robinhood, right? It's like, oh, the average man can get in now. We've cracked the code to be able to let you guys in to invest in stocks. That's why that whole GameStop thing, if that whole GameStop situation everybody know about, that was a setup. That was a setup to get regular people into the stock market. Look at all these people who put money into this GameStop and they're fighting the system and now they're rich, right? This is propaganda 101, baby. The reason why the stock market ain't in the dumps right now, despite this terrible economy, you got 11 million people won't even work. Not that they can't work, won't work. Actually, you have more than that. You have 11 million openings right now because people don't want to work. You know, real life example. My recyclables sat out there 4 days. That's supposed to be picked up. This is a good job. You know, anybody knows anything about garbage man recycling to you, talking $20+ an hour. They don't even want to work that. This economy is done. It's in the dumps. And the people holding up this stock market, this imaginary market anyway, are the average investors now. The people who actually know what they're doing are getting out of the market and they're buying real estate. You know, they're buying land, they're buying farmland, they're buying property. They're even buying businesses that are going down at a record rate right now due to, you know, the pandemic, right? They're buying up all this real tangible things and gonna leave you holding the bag on the stock market. You know, and I had a brother come up to me the other day. He was like, oh, you need to get into stocks. And I didn't go too much into it with him, older cat. And I'm sitting here thinking like, bro, you about 2 steps behind. You should be telling me this 10 years ago. You should be telling me about the market 10 years ago, right? At this point, I use this intuition, baby, this intuitive empath here, you know. And the one thing you don't really want to do, unless you're doing a quick hit on the stock, you just know something's going to shoot up real quick. You want to make a couple $100, do that. Outside of that, stay out of the stock market right now. It's set up for a crash, and they're going to leave you holding the bag, which is what the billionaire class does. They didn't become billionaires being stupid, right? They think ahead. They plan with each other. They talk to each other. They have each other's numbers. You know, these are people that own corporations. They can crash at any time they want to be honest with you. But they choose to hold it up for right now. And that's all planned. Not to get into nothing too conspiratorial, but that's it, right? If anything, you need to be looking towards digital currency is coming, no matter how you feel about it, because we all know that it's going to be something that may be used for nefarious purposes, but you're not stopping that digital wave right now. Only way you can counteract that is probably going homesteading, right? If you plan on going and getting a cabin in the woods and avoid, which some people are doing actually, and avoiding people and just going and doing your own thing, then, you know, you don't have to worry about that. But outside of that, you need to get hip to the game of crypto, because that's going to be the new wave, or that's going to be the new thing. That's what you're going to need to have to exchange goods and services, which is all currency is an exchange of goods and services. So that's on net. I think I beat that dead horse pretty good. One of the other topics I got here is the media silence on these worldwide protests we have here, right? We've seen a lot. I think I'll say Australia right now. UK had plenty of them. France, they getting down. They are getting down in France, right? And you're seeing most people don't even know about this because it's not making the news, right? It's not on your daily news service. Yahoo ain't pushing notifications. See, Yahoo is so annoying, yo. Oh my God. Every 20 minutes I get an update on the Rona, But anyway, nothing about worldwide protests, but you need to know, 2 kids got it the other day. You need to be scared, right? And we're seeing massive protests, particularly with the Aussies, they're trying to do them camps over there, which sounds freaking terrifying. I don't know how anybody can be in favor of that whole deal of making, stupid 19 camps. That's just some straight 1984 dystopia type stuff. But that's what you got going on. And you're seeing protests. I think they had the trucking protest today where they're supposed to shut down all of the trucks. And anybody who, once again, we talked about the labor. We talked about how, your grocery store gets food and items. Those trucks go down. It's going to be a big thing, right? You're not being able to restock these store shelves, which are already looking skimpy, at least in America, as far as I know. But however, once again, on the back end of that, you have plenty of fear-inducing news, right? Anxiety-inducing news. At this point, I say watching the news is pretty much a lesson in anxiety induction. You are adding to your anxiety and reducing the number of days you're going to live by watching the news on a daily basis. It's to the point where you can tell who's a regular news watcher these days, just due to the level of anxiety they have. They will talk to you about things 6 states over that has nothing to do with their daily life. But this is what, Don Lemon told them to care about today. It's a form of psychosis. And I'm not saying not be informed what's going on in the world, but there are plenty of sources you can get that actually don't have a dog in this fight. They're not here to induce anxiety into you, right? Even here at KWAZ, I told you about the whole family of podcasts. Starting up another one on the side, you have independent journalists, right? You have the Tim Pools of the world, you have the Ricky Verandas and the Monica Perez's and the Tom Woods and people like that, the Dave Smiths. If you're into politics, you got that guy over there. I know I'm kind of leaning more towards libertarian type of deal, but just you have people who don't really have any incentive to tell you some bull. It doesn't help them. In fact, it would hurt them more because once they get found out that they're pushing propaganda and bull, their little following to just leave. You know what I'm saying? So you have to get out of this habit of absorbing this daily news. What was it said? Like the 90% of news corporations, 90% of news stations and news publications are owned by like 6 entities. It's ridiculous, man. I see one thing where the guy had a montage of different news stations across the country, and he put them all against each other. He made a little montage, and they're literally repeating the same script at every news station without a beat. This is terrifying, yo. So you need to get off that. You need to turn it off. Matter of fact, turn the TV off in general. One thing I know I got into was the habit of having it on like background noise, right? Having it on is something to keep it distracted. But we need to get out that habit, yo. You need to be able to get in tune with your unconscious mind, right? You could subliminally absorb information if you don't know. That's why a lot of people, when they put them self-help tapes on when they sleep to subliminally absorb that information, that's kind of what you're doing by having the TV on in the background, right? Although you may not even be paying attention to it, your subconscious mind is soaking in that information. So what I would do is I would make it a habit of turning the TV off. If you're into different sports or whatever, you want to watch whatever you want to watch, that's cool. But one thing I say, if you're into these TV shows and things like that, utilize that DVR service record so you can skip over the commercials, right? And limit the amount of TV you take in, man. This is a beautiful world out here, yo. Go for a hike, spend time with your family, things like that. And once you do that and you get out of this psychosis that they're trying to induce, this fear-based psychosis, then you'll live a better life off the rip. So let me move on to the next one. And the truth, and this is a fairly recent one because I just hopped on here and I was having a conversation with a young lady, and she was, telling me about this different recipe that, her great grandparents told her about the bone broth and making broth and things like that, which made me think, my grandma lost a few years back. And she had a recipe for like this baked, I don't even know how to describe it, yo. It's like this baked banana pudding cake thing, right? It was one of the most delicious things I ever tasted in my life. Like my grandma she was a beast on them baked goods. I seen her take a loaf of bread and make, sweet bread cake. You know what I'm saying? So when you pour in, that's your delicacy type of dessert, man. It's crazy. It's like, oh, she just took some bread and some sugar and something else, and now we got sweet bread. Hey, and you take that for advantage while they're here, right? And I think that's one of the true tolls of this pandemic. It's just, I know we say one of the stats we harp on is that, the average age is 80, which is of dying of the stupid 19, which is higher than actually the rate of the age of mortality in the United States, right? So, that's one of the points they push to try to say, oh, it's not that bad. But, we don't really think about the loss of that information that goes with these elders. Granted, they're older. You should expect, it to come sooner or later, but that doesn't make it any easier, right? And it's just tragic that we losing all this information. Now, that banana pudding cake thing I told you about my grandma make, my mother, her siblings, none of them know how to make that thing. So when she passed, that's gone with her, right? That knowledge is gone with her. And what you're seeing right now is these elders pass on, particularly at an accelerated rate because of what's going on in the world. We're losing a lot of knowledge. So we need to stop. And I'm guilty of this as well, of just taking time for an advantage, taking time for granted, being a little younger, and stuff like that. You think you're invincible. You think you'll live forever. The end of your timeline isn't even in your conscious mind at this point. Particularly the younger you are, the more invincible you think you are. But what we need to do is take time, slow down, and soak up this knowledge before it's gone. That's pretty much what I wanted to hit on. That is that we need to stop, slow down, and soak up this knowledge. If you think about it, if your grandparent is 80 years old, right? That's a history book sitting right there, though. That's World War II. That's the Civil Rights Movement. That's the hippie movement of the 70s. That's Vietnam. You know what I'm saying? That's everything sitting right there. They can tell you personal stories of what's going on. And if they still have some of the stories from their parents, you looking at 100+ years of history sitting right there that you didn't even realize. You don't need to read no book. You don't need to watch the History Channel. It's sitting right there, particularly if they still have a pretty strong mind. So I know for a fact I'm going to make a better effort to talk to my elders. My grandfather's still here. My grandfather on the other side is still here, although he, has some health issues and memory ain't the greatest right now. So I'm going to start to do better at talking to them on a regular and getting that knowledge. And I recommend everybody else do the same. Don't let these stories, don't let this knowledge, don't let these valuable lessons just pass without you soaking them up, without you getting some of that firsthand knowledge, rather than depending on documentaries and depending on other people to tell you about history. It's right there sitting there. Don't take it for granted. And with that, that's the last topic I have. This wasn't too bad. I think I actually ranted longer than I expected. So hopefully, man, my voice doesn't get too monotonous for you guys. I try to go up and down. You know, I took a couple speech classes in my lifetime, despite this Midwestern twang I got. But you know, hopefully it wasn't too bad. And like I said, when time comes where we can't get you something, I want to just be able to put something out to you guys, because you know you supported us. And just watching the steady growth is not huge. We're not a huge platform by any means, but it's very humbling to watch the growth, to watch people actually take stock of what you're saying, take interest in you. Hell, even personal, you know what I mean? So that's a great thing to watch. So, you know, I don't want to leave you guys hanging. If, you know, something pops up during the week, I will make sure to hop on. And once I get the live thing cracking, that'll be a lot better because we can get the interaction going on, right? But like I said, I just want to get something out to you guys. And also shout out to the revolutionary matron. She kind of makes me work, man. Just watching her go in every day. I think she's doing something every day, whether she's coming on one of the brothers' podcasts, whether she's putting out some of her own stuff, whether she's talking about doing merch and doing commercials, and she's doing her thing. So salute to the queen sister, man. She is very inspirational and more than ecstatic that she's on the team, man, and call her a teammate. You feel me? So with that being said, once again, side project coming with a to be named co-host and a to be named pod. So be on the lookout for that. Once again, El Miguel should be back next episode. We will have a presents episode coming up. Be on the lookout for that. And also the return of Rye. Yeah, so I know you guys are looking forward to that. Even though she sits in the background, I need my facts checked. Hurry up, Rye. So with that being said, on behalf of my family here at the Harsh Reality Podcast and my family at the KWAZ salute, I got to say peace. Hope you guys have a great long weekend, y'all.